Imagine this: you visit your aging parents or grandparents, expecting a warm conversation and shared memories. But instead, they're distant, stubborn, or even downright rude. You wonder, what happened? Why are they acting this way? The truth is, aging brings changes that no one warns us about. Today, we'll discuss 8 unpleasant things seniors do in old age that often catch us by surprise. Understanding these behaviors can help us approach them with more patience and empathy. Seniors becoming more stubborn as they age is something many of us experience firsthand, whether it's with our parents, grandparents, or elderly relatives. It can be frustrating when they refuse to listen to sound advice, reject necessary changes, or insist on doing things the hard way. But this stubbornness isn't just about being difficult, it's a deep psychological response to the aging process. As people grow older, they face an increasing loss of control over their lives. Their bodies don't work the way they used to, their social circles shrink, and they may no longer be able to make the decisions they once did with confidence. To compensate, they hold on tightly to the few things they can control, even if it seems irrational to us. They refuse to stop driving even when it's unsafe, they resist using mobility aids like walkers, and they insist on handling finances even when mistakes are becoming frequent. This isn't just pride, it's fear. The fear of losing their independence, of becoming a burden, of feeling like they no longer have a say in their own lives. Understanding this can shift our perspective. Instead of feeling frustrated, we can approach them with patience. Instead of pushing, we can guide. Small steps, gentle persuasion, and involving them in decisions rather than making choices for them can make a world of difference. Another behavior that catches many people off guard is how much seniors talk, sometimes excessively. You might visit an elderly relative expecting a brief conversation, only to find yourself listening to a long, detailed story about something that happened decades ago. And then, just when you think they're finished, they start the same story all over again. At first, it can seem amusing, but after the 5th or 6th time, it starts to feel exhausting. However, there's a reason behind this. As people age, their social interactions become limited. Many of their friends have either moved away or passed on, and family visits become less frequent. When they finally have someone to talk to, they want to make the most of it. They crave connection, and storytelling is their way of engaging. Beyond that, cognitive changes play a role. Memory isn't as sharp, and sometimes they genuinely don't remember telling the same story before. Additionally, reminiscing gives them a sense of comfort. Their past feels familiar and safe in a way that the present may not. It's their way of holding on to their identity, of reminding themselves and others of the lives they've lived. Instead of dismissing them, we can embrace these moments. Asking follow-up questions, engaging in the conversation, and showing interest in their past makes them feel valued. When we understand why seniors talk so much and repeat stories, we can respond with patience and empathy instead of frustration. The next time you hear the same childhood memory for the 10th time, take a deep breath, smile, and listen. For them, it's more than just words, it's a connection. One of the most challenging and uncomfortable things to witness as a loved one ages is their decline in personal hygiene. It's something that often goes unspoken, but many families face it. You might notice that your elderly parent isn't bathing as often, their clothes aren't as fresh, or their hair looks unkempt. At first, it's easy to assume it's just forgetfulness, but in reality, there are deeper reasons behind it. For some, it's physical limitations. Aches, joint pain, and reduced mobility make tasks like showering, brushing their teeth, or even changing clothes feel exhausting. The bathroom, once a place of routine, becomes a place of struggle. Some seniors fear slipping in the tub or simply don't have the energy to go through the motions of self-care. But it's not always physical. Cognitive decline, including conditions like dementia, can make them forget whether they've bathed or not. They might truly believe they took a shower yesterday when, in reality, it's been a week. Depression also plays a huge role. Aging can bring isolation, grief, and a loss of purpose, and when someone is depressed, self-care is one of the first things to suffer. They stop caring about their appearance because, deep down, they feel like it doesn't matter anymore. For families, addressing this can be difficult. Telling an elderly loved one that they need to bathe more often is awkward, and many seniors become defensive. The key is to approach it with understanding. Instead of pointing it out harshly, offering gentle assistance, making hygiene routines easier with safer bathrooms, and even framing it in a positive way, like suggesting a refreshing shower before a nice outing, can help. Encouragement, not criticism, is what makes the difference. Another thing that takes many people by surprise is how critical and negative seniors can become. You may have noticed it with an aging parent or grandparent. They always seem to have something to complain about, whether it's the way you dress, the choices you make, or even small things like how the neighbors park their cars. This shift in attitude can feel harsh, especially when they weren't always this way. The truth is, negativity often comes from frustration. As people age, they feel like they're losing their independence, their sense of control, and even their place in the world. They see younger generations making choices they don't understand, technology evolving beyond their comfort zone, and their own physical limitations holding them back from things they once enjoyed. It's not just complaining for the sake of it, it's their way of expressing the loss they feel. Loneliness can also fuel negativity. When someone spends a lot of time alone, their thoughts tend to focus on regrets, missed opportunities, and fears about the future. Instead of dismissing their words as just being difficult, it helps to recognize the emotions behind them. A little patience, a reassuring conversation, and making them feel heard can go a long way. Even though their words might be sharp, deep down, what they truly need is connection and understanding. Hoarding is something many seniors do, and while it may seem frustrating or even irrational, there's a deep emotional reason behind it. You might walk into an elderly loved one's home and find stacks of newspapers from years ago, closets overflowing with clothes they haven't worn in decades, or kitchen cabinets filled with containers they'll never use. At first, it's easy to assume they just don't like throwing things away, but the reality is more complex. For many seniors, possessions hold memories. That old sweater might remind them of their spouse. Those newspapers might represent a time when they felt more engaged with the world, and those boxes of trinkets might be the only tangible connection they have to moments long gone. Letting go of these items feels like letting go of a part of themselves. There's also a deep-seated fear of loss. As they age, they see friends passing away, their independence shrinking, and their world getting smaller. Keeping things, even things they don't need, gives them a sense of security. Some seniors also hoard out of practicality. They grew up in times when resources were scarce, and they were taught to save everything because it might be useful one day. The challenge for families is navigating this without making seniors feel like they're being stripped of control. Simply telling them to get rid of things won't work. In fact, it often makes them cling to their belongings even more. Instead, it helps to acknowledge their emotions, go through items together, and find ways to repurpose or donate things rather than just discarding them. When they see their things going to a good home, it becomes easier to let go. Another thing that happens with aging is a noticeable decline in social interest. A senior who was once the life of the party might suddenly stop attending family gatherings, ignore phone calls, or prefer to sit alone rather than engage in conversation. To loved ones, this can feel confusing and even hurtful. You might wonder if they're upset, disinterested, or purposely distancing themselves, but in reality, there's often an underlying reason. One of the biggest factors is physical limitations. Hearing loss makes conversations exhausting, vision problems make it harder to recognize faces, and mobility issues make outings feel overwhelming. Rather than struggle to keep up, many seniors simply withdraw. Another major reason is emotional fatigue. As people age, they experience more loss, losing lifelong friends, seeing younger generations move on with their own busy lives, and feeling like they're no longer as relevant. This leads to loneliness, and over time, that loneliness turns into isolation. Depression also plays a big role, making it hard for them to feel motivated to socialize. For family members, the best way to address this isn't to force them into social situations but to make small, meaningful efforts. A short visit, a heartfelt conversation, or even just sitting with them in silence can remind them that they are still valued and included. Sometimes, all they need is reassurance that they are not forgotten.